Late at night in the city, the light rain had just stopped, leaving the air cold. The yellow street lights reflected down on the watery road surface, forming long streaks of light. The neighborhood gradually sank into silence, only the sound of car wheels passing by, occasionally breaking the silence. David, a young police officer, was patrolling the area on a motorcycle. The wheels spin slowly, like vigilance is always in him. Although this area is not complicated, sometimes unexpected and unforeseen incidents appear. He looked along the streets. Everything is strangely silent. At that moment, on the corner near a closed grocery store, he saw a small figure. A little girl, no more than 8 years old, was sitting on the steps. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes were stained, and her face was pale in the dim light. David slowly stopped the car. Her eyes stared at him, her lips trembling slightly. David got out of the car and approached carefully. I knew I shouldn't have scared her anymore, but the look on her face full of panic made me feel that something was wrong. Are you okay? Why are you here alone like this? David asked. His voice was gentle but still serious. The little girl looked up, her eyes watery. After a while, she whispered 3 words, "They're coming." Those words were like a lightning strike to David. The surrounding space seemed to coincide and became colder. He lowered his body, trying to see more clearly into his fearful eyes. "Who's coming? What are you afraid of?" he hurriedly asked, his heart beating faster. The little girl didn't answer, just shook her head slightly and clung to his arm as if begging for protection. David looked around, feeling that something was wrong. The street was unusually quiet and far away, and he heard a small noise, like a car moving slowly. David quickly decided, "Come with me. I'll take you to safety." He quickly carried the little girl into the car so that she could sit neatly in the front. In the meantime, his gaze did not leave the street. The black car in the distance had just appeared in sight. It was approaching. The speed is not fast but full of tracking. David sensed the danger. He slammed the accelerator, and the motorcycle rushed like an arrow towards the police headquarters a few kilometers away. The black car behind immediately accelerated, following him. David kept his speed steady, controlling the car while glancing at her. "Can you tell me anything more? Who are they? Why are they following you?" The little girl just shook her head, tears running down her cheeks. The sound of the car behind was getting closer and closer, accompanied by the headlights that lit up the whole road. David realized he couldn't prolong this situation any longer. He pressed the button on the walkie-talkie worn on his shoulder. "This is David. I need reinforcements right away. It's likely that I'm being watched on Luolongquan Street, heading towards the headquarters." The voice of the comrade answered in the radio. "Received. The rescue team is coming." "Be careful, David." David breathed a sigh of relief, but the danger was not over. The black car behind suddenly accelerated, trying to force him to the side. David skillfully steered, swerving through a narrow turn, taking advantage of small paths to cut his tail. She clung to his shirt tightly, trembling but not crying, as if she was used to these dangerous situations. Finally, after a few minutes of intense pursuit, David saw the familiar red and blue flashing lights in the distance. The rescue team arrived. The black car immediately slowed down, turned around, and disappeared into the night before the police could approach. David stopped the car in front of the headquarters, breathing heavily. He bent down to look at her, now less scared but still clinging to him. "It's okay, I'm safe," he said in a reassuring voice. But deep down he knew that this was just the beginning. The 3 words, "They are coming," are hiding a much larger story that he does not yet understand. David took her to a makeshift security room in the headquarters, where his colleague, Anna, was waiting. Anna is an experienced female police officer who is always cautious and observant. As soon as she saw her, Anna immediately realized that she had experienced a very serious incident. The little girl remained silent, her eyes evading, but her tiny hand clung to David's shirt without letting go. "David, why is this baby out on the street at this hour?" Anna asked, her eyes worried. She could only say 3 words. "They're coming." "I thought she was afraid of something very serious. Maybe it's related to the human trafficking case that my team is tracking." The little girl was still silent, her eyes wandering down at the floor as if she didn't want to face anyone. "What's your name? Can you tell me what happened?" David asked softly, trying not to put more pressure on him. After a moment of silence, the little girl said in a weak voice, "I'm Linda. I ran away because they wanted to arrest me. They have arrested a lot of my friends." David and Anna looked at each other, their eyes full of vigilance. Every word Linda said was like a piece of a puzzle that revealed a more serious incident than they thought. "Who are they and where are your friends taken?" Anna continued. Linda hesitated for a moment, and then continued, "I don't know. But they live in a big house with a lot of rooms. I heard they said they would take them all away." The answer was vague, but enough for David to feel the need to act immediately. He asked the investigation team to review recent child disappearances. The results quickly showed a string of missing reports from the surrounding areas, but there was no clear connection yet. While everyone was still looking for information, the landline phone in the headquarters suddenly rang. Anna picked up the phone, and the voice on the other side was cold and low. "Stop investigating now. Otherwise you will regret it." Anna had time to record the phone number before the call was disconnected. However, when they looked it up, they found that it was an anonymous number. The call made the atmosphere in the room tense. David didn't let the threat deter him. He turned to ask Linda, "Do you remember anything else? A small detail can also help me find my friends." Linda pondered for a moment, then reached into her torn pocket and took out a photo. An old photo of a large villa in the middle of a grassy field. David's gaze immediately focused on this detail. David and Anna decided to go to the location in the photo. They asked the technical team to locate the house and discovered that it was located in the suburbs, more than 20 kilometers from the city. "We can't wait any longer, let's go," David said, his eyes full of determination. Anna nodded and brought the necessary equipment before leaving. David turned to reassure Linda, "You can rest assured. I'll find my friends and get them back to safety." The villa appears behind tall trees, looking majestic but desolate. The painted walls were peeling off, the glass doors were shattered, and the iron gates were rusting. David and Anna got out of the car, and the flashlights swept across the dark area. "This place is scary," Anna said, pointing to the newly printed tire marks on the ground. The two walked through the old gate, going deep inside the house. The outside looked deserted, but when they entered, they noticed many unusual signs. On the dining table, a plate of unfinished food, and the floor had shoe prints on a thin layer of dust. As David was inspecting a room, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared from the stairs. He was dressed in a simple black suit. His face was expressionless, but his eyes flashed with vigilance. "What are you doing here?" he said in a low and cold voice. David looked at him carefully. Something was not right. "We're the police investigating a missing person case," David replied, his hand clenching his hand. David and Anna continued to watch the man, not showing any signs of worry. His footsteps were slow, but the wary gaze made them both understand that this was not an easy person to deal with. David gestured softly to Anna, then began to ask questions. "Who does this house belong to? Why are there signs of people living here?" He was silent for a moment. His eyes did not leave David. Then he sneered, his lips twitched, and said, "You don't know. Everything has its price." David didn't want to waste time, but he was clearly not an easy person to declare. "You don't need to answer, but if you don't, you'll regret it." Anna pulled out a gun from her belt, her eyes cold. The man laughed loudly, seemingly noticing the determination in their eyes. Finally, he spoke up. "You've come to the right place, but you can't get out so easily." As soon as the words were finished, a loud noise sounded from behind, drawing David and Anna's attention. They turned around and only saw a group of men from the surrounding rooms rushing out, weapons in hand. The situation became tense in the blink of an eye. David and Anna immediately opened up defensive tactics, using household items to shield, and quickly counterattacked. Gunshots echoed in the narrow space of the villa. After a breathtaking gunfight, David and Anna overwhelmed the henchmen. However, the middle-aged man quickly escaped into an inner door, leaving no trace other than the sound of hurried footsteps. David watched angrily, but he knew that arresting him would require more careful planning. "We can't let him escape," David said, his voice tense. Surely he knows something important. Anna nodded in agreement, and then the two continued to search the mansion, hoping for more clues. After a while, David finds a small room hidden behind a secret door. Inside is a collection of documents and photographs of the victims, including photos of the missing children. David felt the pain in his heart rise. This is the whole human trafficking network, he told Anna. This house is only part of it. We need to find out who is behind it and break down this whole organization. After finding some important information about the locations and names related to the network, David decided to immediately report it to the investigation team. But before leaving the mansion, the two spotted another sign, a small notebook lying under the table. When they opened it, they noticed a long list of names, along with hidden addresses. David suddenly remembered Linda's words about a large house where her friends were being held. He decided to quickly make a plan to rescue them. We have to go find those children. Right now, David said. The two quickly left the villa, carrying important evidence. On the way back to the headquarters, David felt determined in his heart. This fight is not only to save Linda and the children, but also to stop a huge criminal organization, which is hiding right under their noses. Upon returning to headquarters, David decided to contact other police units to coordinate, share information, and conduct a large-scale search. Everything is ready, and the fight against this human trafficking organization will not stop until everyone behind it is brought to light. One sleepless night, David sat at the table, the faint light illuminating his face. He flipped through every page of the document, pondering every detail on the list. The feeling of frustration in his heart could not be easily relieved. Although it has only just begun, this investigation has taken a dangerous turn, and he knows that he will face even more fierce challenges. Tomorrow will be a long day, David said to himself, his eyes looking into the distance through the window, where night covered the city. The next day, David and Anna begin to work on a plan to rescue the victims they have found in the documentary. After consulting with the police teams, they decided to split up to carry out a sweep at several locations where the criminal group may be hiding the children. We're going to have to be careful, David said, his voice decisive. This organization is not simple. They have a wide relationship and many hands and feet in the authorities. Anna nodded, her expression serious. I will focus on the southern area near the ports. They can take the victims abroad through there. What about you? I'm going to the suburban industrial park. According to the information, it may be a transit station, David replied. Before separating, the two exchanged information again to ensure that there were no loopholes. David felt like he was facing an invisible monster, but more determined than ever. David's first trip was to an industrial park located outside the city. When we arrived, it was already getting dark. The industrial park is large, deserted, with only a few trucks parked around old warehouses. The strange noises in the quiet space made David even more vigilant. He called Anna to update the situation. There's definitely something wrong here, David whispered over the phone, and responded in a similar situation, but did not forget to remind David to stay safe. You have to report it immediately if there is a problem. We don't know who we're up against. David nodded even though he couldn't see it. He took a long breath and decided to enter the warehouse area. Inside, the air was humid. The smell of engine oil and smoke rose strongly. He moved carefully, his eyes constantly observing every angle. Suddenly, a noise came from behind a large container. David held his breath, approaching the gun in his hand. Next to the container is a small warehouse door leading inside. David couldn't stand still. He quickly opened the door and walked in. Inside is a dark area where iron cages housed detainees. The children, mostly girls, were lying in it, their eyes staring at David with panic as he appeared. They seem to have been imprisoned here for a long time. Their bodies are emaciated, and there are traces of mistreatment. David felt angry and heartbroken. He couldn't let them stay in this situation any longer. He ordered his comrades over the radio to immediately move to his position. But as he was trying to free the victims, a loud noise rang out from outside. The warehouse door slammed, and a group of people dressed in black walked in. I didn't expect someone to come here so quickly. One of them sneered, his voice dry. Don't think you can stop me, David replied coldly, his eyes clearly showing determination. He quickly pulled the victims out of the iron cage and told them to run towards the back door. But when David turned around, he saw that the criminals had blocked all the way out. The tense scene continues when David realizes that this is not an ordinary criminal group. They were well-trained, armed with modern weapons, and seemed to be ambushing him. A fierce gunfight broke out right in the warehouse. The sound of gunfire echoed throughout the space. The situation is becoming more and more serious. David realized that without timely assistance, both he and the victims would be trapped here. He shot down one of them, then quickly moved towards the emergency exit. But as soon as he got out, a large truck rushed towards him, trying to block the road. David had no time to think. He rushed inside the truck, pushed the children into a safe corner, and then turned to face the criminal group. He pulled out the phone, called Anna, and reported the emergency. "We need immediate support. The location is a suburban industrial park. Be careful. They are large and very dangerous." Anna immediately confirmed and called for support. But as David was preparing to deal with the last group of criminals, he was suddenly hit in the stomach by a powerful punch, causing him to fall to the ground. Before everything became blurry, he only heard a man sneering, "Don't think you can get out of here." David felt his body squeezed, breathing hard as he pressed against him. His eyes faded, but he couldn't stop thinking about the children who were still in the warehouse, and the war wasn't over. Suddenly, a loud noise sounded from behind, and then a figure flashed past him, as fast as a cut. "It's Anna." She arrived just in time, rushing into the battle like a whirlwind. Using her sharp dagger, Anna quickly stopped the criminal who was overwhelming David, causing him to step back, giving David a chance to stand up. Anna didn't say a word, just gestured to David with her unwavering gaze. David breathed heavily, reaching out to help her. But before he could do anything, the other man lunged at them from behind. But as soon as he swung his gun, David grabbed his gun, pulled it out of his hand, and fired a shot at his leg, knocking him to the ground. "Don't let them get a chance to get up," Anna said coldly, her expression expressionless at all. David nodded. The support team arrived in time. Police cars rumbled into the industrial park, simultaneously approaching their positions. The rest of the criminals panic and flee, but David and Anna don't let them escape. A small gunfight lasted for a few minutes, but eventually, everything calmed down when the police arrived, surrounded, and arrested all the rest. Anna stood next to David, breathing a sigh of relief, but she knew this was just the first step. Several criminals have been arrested, but this fight is far from over. David looked at her, his eyes filled with appreciation and determination. "Thank you. Without you, I wouldn't have been able to get out of there," David said, his voice deep but sincere. Anna only smiled softly, but her eyes were clearly worried. "We have only broken part of this network. This organization is bigger than we thought, and they won't give up easily." David understood that. He looked around, saw the children had been rescued. They were being cared for. Some of them couldn't even stand up because of fear and exhaustion. But at least now they were no longer imprisoned in the dark. After reporting the situation to their superiors, David and Anna and the police team took the victims to safety. They have succeeded in rescuing the children from the criminals, but they both know that it is just one of the countless confrontations to come. In the days that followed, David and Anna continued to expand their investigation, tracking down those behind the network. Every search, every source leads them to a new discovery, and the danger is becoming more and more apparent. They can't stop, because there are so many innocent people who are caught up in this spiral. The powerful criminal organization is seeking revenge, and David knows that this war cannot end with a small victory. One evening, while David and Anna were reviewing the collected documents, they received a phone call. On the other end of the line was a familiar but somewhat hurried and panicked voice. "David, Anna, careful. They've been spying on you. You guys have been exposed." The two looked at each other worriedly. David knew that right now, the real battle had just begun. A sense of tension rose in David's body as he realized the seriousness of the warning. They have been discovered. Not just a single criminal, but an underground organization with great power and resources. David and Anna both understood that things would never be the same again. "We must act immediately," David said, his voice serious, no trace of worry. His eyes swept over the room filled with documents and investigative maps. "We have to change our plans. We can't continue in the same way." Anna nodded. Her eyes did not leave the computer screen that was showing a map of the criminal network. "They will not easily spare us. If we don't do anything, the next targets will be us." The two quickly gather all the information left over from the investigation, and at the same time prepare everything for a possible escape. David turned to look at Anna, her face still cold, but her eyes were clearly worried and determined. "There's a way," Anna suddenly said, her hands quickly opening a new map on the computer screen. "We're going to have to attack the organization from within, making it impossible for them to control everything." David looked at the map she was pointing to, then looked back into her eyes. "So what are you going to do?" Anna was silent for a moment, a vague smile appearing on her lips. "I have a friend in the organization, someone who has turned around but is still in this vortex. She can help us penetrate and break the web from within." David knew right away that this was a double-edged sword, but he also saw this as David's best chance to end this fight. "We're going to have to be very careful. One wrong step can lead to disaster," David warned, his seriousness not diminishing. Anna nodded, then quickly contacted her friend in the organization. Step by step, the plan is formed. They will need to use the information they have gathered and launch a surprise attack on the organization's shelter. However, in the process, they face the risk of being detected at any time. The next day, as dusk fell, David and Anna and the help team were at the meeting point. The area was heavily guarded, but with the help of Anna's friend in the organization, they were able to reach it undetected. As she went deep into the criminal base, Anna looked at David again, her eyes full of determination. "We're getting close. Don't let us fail." David nodded slightly, his hand clutching his gun. He knew that it would be a tough confrontation ahead, but there was no way back. They continued to move, deep into the dark base, where strange sounds and gunpowder smells lurked in the air. Suddenly, a loud noise sounded, causing them to stop. The lights flashed, and figures from the darkness began to appear, forcing them into a corner. This organization is not easy to defeat, but once David and Anna made up their minds, they wouldn't let anything stop them. Entering this war, it is not only to save the lives of innocent children, but also to break a vast criminal network, eradicating the darkness that is enveloping this society. The confrontation finally began. The sound of footsteps rang out, each step strong and firm, making the space even heavier. David and Anna stood opposite a group of guards, guns in hand, their eyes full of vigilance. They know that, right now, even a small mistake can end it all. Anna beckoned to David, and they immediately separated, moving as fast as a ghost in the dark. Every movement is carefully calculated. Every step is a battle against time. The flashing lights made it possible for them to see shadows lurking in the hidden corners of the base, but no one noticed them. However, when approaching the central area, an unexpected thing happened. David suddenly noticed a truck parked right in front of him, with a group of people preparing to deliver the goods. David realized that it was just what they needed, the important information they were looking for. But if they don't act immediately, this car will leave the base, and they will lose track. "This is an opportunity," David whispered, his voice decisive. "We can't let it go." Anna didn't say anything, just nodded gently. She had prepared for this situation in advance. With a quick movement, she opened the backpack, took out a remote control device, and pressed the button. A slight noise rang out, and the door on the side of the truck slowly opened. The surrounding guards were unaware that the car was being hijacked. David and Anna rushed in at the same time, seizing the opportunity. They sneak inside, discreetly and silently like ghosts. Within minutes, they were able to reach the car without making any noise. There is only one step left for them to get important information. But at that moment, David's phone rang. A message from a friend in Anna's organization, warning, "They know you're here." David's eyes flashed with worry. "Things have started to get more tense than ever. We have to go right away. Can't wait any longer," he said quickly. The two returned to the truck, preparing to move. But as the car began to roll, a series of gunshots rang out from behind. The headlights illuminated the entire area, and the shadows of people rushed towards them. The pursuers discovered them. "Stop!" A voice sounded over the radio, accompanied by gunshots. David didn't say anything. His eyes were cold, his hand still holding the steering wheel. "Hurry up," he ordered Anna. Anna turned back, her eyes as cold as ice. She knew that she couldn't let herself get caught. They were too close. Just a little more to escape from this base and destroy the entire criminal network. But at this time, armored vehicles appeared, blocking all the way out. The situation has become more tense than ever. "Let me take care of this," Anna said, emphasizing every word. She opened the car door and jumped down, lunging at a car that was moving nearby. David looked at her, only to close his eyes and sigh. He knew she would do it. Now is the time to trust each other. Anna quickly rushed into the car, using a special tool to lock the doors and take control of the armored car. David, from inside the truck, saw the soldiers trying to close in. Everything has now become a breathtaking chase. Every second that passes is a battle for survival. "Anna!" David shouted over the radio. "Be careful!" Anna didn't answer, but David knew she wouldn't give up. She was the most David he could trust right now. They both knew, when they left this place, there would be no way back. The people behind this organization will not give up until they are defeated. But for David and Anna, this fight is not just about survival. It is to protect the innocent, to stop a huge criminal network that threatens the whole society. The chase continues in extreme tension. David and Anna both understood that there was not much time. The two have made important decisions, and now everything depends on their ability to escape the pursuit of the enemy. But one thing is for sure, they can't stop. Anna slowly steered the armored vehicle, circling the hidden corners of the base. She could hear gunshots from behind, along with the roaring engines of chasing cars. She twisted the steering wheel, skillfully avoiding power poles and roadblocks. The flashing lights from the cars behind were getting closer and closer. Everything became blurry in the pitch-black night. But Anna's eyes still lit up with determination. Inside the truck, David sees a shortcut through the forest ahead. He smiled confidently, a smile that only those who were accustomed to danger could understand. "This is our best chance, David," he whispered to himself. He drove recklessly, overcoming sharp turns without hesitation. By the time they both entered the dark forest, the atmosphere became more suffocating than ever. The chasing cars can't keep up with the jungle road, but at the same time, both David and Anna faced the risk of getting lost in the dark. David glanced at his watch, realizing that they were only a few minutes away from reaching the safety zone. But at that moment, an armored car suddenly appeared from the darkness. David hurriedly steered, avoiding the collision. But another car rushed in from behind, forcing them to the side. "Can't let us get caught." David made up his mind. He gripped the steering wheel, looking at the small road ahead, which was just enough for the truck to pass. He stepped on the accelerator hard, plunging straight into the jungle area, where the roads were only trails. But all David could hear now was the sound of gunfire and engines getting louder and louder, coming from almost all sides. He felt sweat running down his back, but he couldn't stop. Anna realized that the situation was becoming more and more dangerous. She saw the armored car rushing towards her. Another truck from the front was approaching at breakneck speed. She hurriedly put her hand on the controller, pressing the emergency button. In just an instant, the armored car exploded, causing a huge explosion that caused the surrounding air to reverberate violently. The chasing cars were pushed back, and a haze of smoke blanketed the area. "This is an opportunity," David shouted over the radio. "Let's go." With a sharp turn, both cars, the truck and the armored vehicle, disappear into the night. The pursuers have been knocked out or pushed back, and David and Anna know that they have had enough time to leave the base and complete the mission. Finally, as dawn broke, David and Anna stopped at a safe area, dozens of kilometers away from the base. Both were tired, dusty, but the joy of victory shone brightly in their eyes. David opened the car door, stepped outside, and felt the fresh air of the first morning after many days of chasing. Anna looked at him, a tired but proud smile. "We did it, David." "Yes, but that's not all," David replied, his eyes lighting up as he thought of his ultimate goal. We're just getting started. Although the wound is still painful, although everything is still ambiguous, David and Anna know that this fight is not over. They have defeated part of the criminal organization, but the road ahead is full of difficulties. But with friendship and consensus, they will never give up. And as the morning light shone on everything, David and Anna continued their journey, with the firm belief that they would triumph over all the challenges ahead, for the noble goal they pursued: to protect what matters most.